What if I told you that Jesus didn't want everyone to understand him? What if the parables, those sweet, poetic stories we learned in Sunday school, weren't just lessons, but locks? What if behind every farmer, every seed, every lamp under a basket was a hidden code, a message not meant for the casual listener? Not even for the religious, but for those outside the system. It sounds crazy, even offensive. But these aren't my words. They're his. Matthew 13:10, verse 11. The disciples came to him and asked, "Why do you speak to the people in parables?" He replied, "Because the knowledge of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven has been given to you, but not to them." Wait, what Jesus intentionally hid truth? Yes, and it changes everything. You see, we've grown up thinking parables are simplified teachings, kindergarten gospel, but that's not what Jesus said. He said they were secrets, codes, designed to reveal truth to some and conceal it from others. That shakes the system, because it means access to truth isn't about intellect, or even about being religious. It's about readiness, spiritual sensitivity, a hunger to hear beyond the noise. That Jesus wasn't hiding to be cruel. He was filtering. He was separating the crowds from the seekers. And here's the real shock. Many of the religious people missed it. The temple elite, the law experts, the ones who should have known. They heard the same stories and walked away unchanged because they didn't want the truth. They wanted control. But the tax collectors, the prostitutes, the broken, they leaned in. They heard the hidden messages, and their lives were never the same. So here's the question. For us, are we hearing what Jesus really said, or just the surface version? Are we open to the hidden codes? Or are we so religiously comfortable we've stopped listening? Let's break down one of these parables. The parable of the sower. You know it. A farmer throws seed on 4 kinds of soil: the path, the rocky ground, the thorns, the good soil. We've heard it 100 times. But what's the code? Jesus explains the seed is the word of God. The soil is the heart. And depending on the heart, truth either dies or multiplies. But here's what most miss: the seed didn't change. Only the soil did. In other words, God's voice doesn't get louder. Your heart just gets softer. Some people will hear a message and be transformed. Others will scroll right past it. Same seed, different soil. Jesus is showing us the condition of your inner life determines your ability to receive the kingdom. So what kind of soil are you? Not just in church, but in silence, in stress, in disappointment? Is your heart open or hardened? Because the secrets of the kingdom aren't shouted. They're whispered, and you have to be still enough to hear. Let's go deeper. Jesus says the seed that falls on the path is immediately stolen by the enemy. Why? Because the heart is hardened. There's no entry point. It's been trampled, overexposed, and that's many of us. We've heard so much Christian talk, we're numb to it. We've been burned, betrayed, bored. So when the real word of life comes, it bounces off. Then there's the rocky ground, the one who receives with joy but falls when trouble comes. This is shallow faith, emotional but not rooted. Then the thorns, the one who hears but gets choked by worry and wealth. This is distracted faith, overstimulated, overcommitted. And finally the good soil, the one who hears and produces fruit, 30, 60, 100-fold. So here's the code. The kingdom is here. The truth is planted. But only hearts that are broken, ready, and open will bloom. Everyone else, they'll hear the parable but miss the point, just like the religious did. And that's terrifying. Because it means you can go to church every Sunday, quote scripture, serve in ministry, and still be deaf to what Jesus is actually saying. Not because you're evil, but because you're not listening. Because your soul is not soft. Because you've confused religion with relationship, and the parables, they cut right through that. Jesus wasn't interested in drawing crowds. He was searching for seekers, people hungry for more. And when he found them, he didn't give them a motivational speech. He gave them mystery, because mystery humbles you. It forces you to slow down, to listen again, to ask the Spirit, what are you really saying? And that is where transformation begins. Now pause, take a breath, let this settle, because the parables aren't cute stories. They're spiritual X-rays. They reveal what kind of listener you are. So I'll ask you, have you been reading Jesus like a surface story, or like a secret message? Because the kingdom was never meant to be obvious. It was meant to be discovered, and you can't discover what you think you already know. So let the seed fall again. Let your heart soften. And if this is resonating, if something inside you is stirring, don't brush it off. Like this video, subscribe for more, and comment below. What parable do you want to explore next? What hidden message are you sensing? Because Jesus didn't hide truth to punish you. He hid it so you'd go deeper, so you'd press in, so you'd become more than a believer. You'd become a seeker. What if the most powerful truths Jesus ever shared are still hidden not because they're locked, but because we stopped looking? The second layer of these parables isn't for the religious. It's for the restless, for the misfits, for the ones who feel like there's more to this than what we were taught. Let's dive deeper, because once you learn to decode, you can't stop seeing. Take this one. No one lights a lamp and hides it under a bowl, but puts it on a stand so it gives light to everyone in the house. Matthew 5:15. Sounds simple, right? A metaphor about sharing your faith. But remember what Jesus said earlier. You are the light of the world. Which means this parable isn't about candles. It's about you. So what does it mean to hide your light? To dim the divine essence inside you? It means conforming to fear, shrinking to fit systems, letting shame silence what God meant to shine. But here's the code Jesus is saying. Don't become visible. Remember that you already are. Your light is not something you earn. It's something you release. But here's the tension. The bowl, what you hide under, is usually something that once protected you. Your persona, your performance, your need to be accepted. And sometimes, your religion. Let that sink in. Because for some, church has become a bowl, a place to perform light, instead of be light. But Jesus never told you to perform. He told you to shine, to radiate truth even when it's inconvenient, to reflect heaven even when it costs you, and to not hide just because it's easier. This parable isn't cute. It's convicting. Because the moment you choose comfort over calling the light dims, not because it disappeared, but because you covered it. The truth, you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to burn bright, to set fire to apathy, to ignite faith where religion went cold. But that kind of light, it makes people uncomfortable. It exposes darkness. It disrupts fake spirituality. And that's exactly what Jesus did. Every parable was light, and every time he spoke, some leaned in and others got offended. So the question is, when you hear Jesus, do you lean in or do you retreat? Do you let the light search your soul or do you reach for a bowl? Now let's go further. There's another parable. This one barely gets mentioned. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. Matthew 13:44, hidden treasure. Another metaphor, now a spiritual blueprint. Here's the code. The kingdom isn't handed to you. It's hidden, not from you, but for you. And only those who dig, who search, who sacrifice find it. That's why Jesus says the man sold everything to buy the field. He didn't just want the land. He wanted a treasure beneath it. You see, many believers love the field, the appearance, the title, the structure, but few are willing to dig for the treasure, to go beyond sermons, to wrestle with mystery, to lay down comfort for revelation. That's the true seeker. And when they find it, joy, not obligation, not religion. Joy, because once you've tasted what's real, you'll trade everything to hold it. So let me ask you, have you settled for the field, or are you digging for the treasure Are you content with church culture, or are you crying out for kingdom encounter? Because Jesus isn't looking for crowd followers. He's looking for field buyers, treasure hunters, people willing to risk everything for a glimpse of glory. And there's one more twist. In the very next parable that Jesus says this, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. Matthew 13:40-46. This time, the seeker is a merchant, and the treasure is a single pearl. It's even more rare, more costly. But the principle is the same. The kingdom is worth everything. But here's the paradox. It's free, but it'll cost you everything. You can't buy it. But to keep it, you must surrender. All pride, all performance, all pretense. Because the real kingdom doesn't exist on the surface. It lives in the deep. And only those who are done playing church, who are willing to leave behind normal, will find the pearl. So here's the real question. What's the treasure you've been ignoring? What's the pearl you've been afraid to chase? And what are you still clinging to that's keeping you from selling the field? Jesus isn't hiding to frustrate you. He's waiting to see who really wants him. And that might sound harsh, but it's actually grace. Because cheap faith dies fast. But costly faith, it survives the fire. And these parables, they're fire. They burn away distraction. They test desire. They reveal hearts. So again, what's your heart saying right now? Is it stirred? Is it uncomfortable good? That means you're close, because the treasure is always buried just beneath discomfort. And when you go there, when you push past the surface, you find him. So don't stop. Like this video, if it's speaking to you. Subscribe for more. And comment below. Which parable shook you most? What field are you being called to sell? Because this isn't entertainment, this is excavation. You're not just watching a video, you're digging. And the treasure, it's closer than you think. If you've made it this far, it means one thing. You're not afraid of the deeper things. You're not satisfied with Sunday school answers. You want the real kingdom. So let's dive into the final layer of the parables, the ones that don't get preached much because they're not comfortable. They're not cute. They're confronting. Like this one, be dressed ready for service and keep your lamps burning. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes. Luke 12:35-37. At first glance, it's about readiness. But look closer. The parable is a code for spiritual alertness. Jesus is describing a kind of believer who's not just saved, but awake, actively watching, actively waiting, not distracted, not drifting, but lit. So here's the code. The kingdom is not just about what you believe, but how alert your spirit is. Many people confess Christ, but live spiritually asleep. They go through motions, they attend services, but inside they're not burning, they're not listening, they're not tuned in. And Jesus says, "Blessed are those I find watching." In other words, faith is not passive. It's present, it's active expectancy, a readiness to obey, a sensitivity to the Spirit's whisper. And here's the kicker, Jesus doesn't tell them when the Master is coming. He leaves it unknown, which means your posture must be permanent. You don't wait to get ready, you stay ready. Because in the kingdom, timing is mystery, but posture, that's your responsibility. So what posture are you living in? Fear, distraction, performance, or expectancy? Let's move deeper. Here's a parable most people avoid. Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. Matthew 7:13. Oof, not easy to hear. But this one's not just about heaven or hell. It's a code for conscious living. Jesus is saying most people, yes, even religious ones, will choose comfort over truth. The wide road, that's culture, crowds, convenience, but the narrow gate, that's cost. It's discipline, it's surrender, it's saying yes when everything in you wants to say no. But here's the secret. The narrow gate leads to abundance, not ease, but eternal significance. Jesus never promised safety, he promised life. But it's found on a road few choose. Ursa, so are you on the narrow path? Or are you still trying to blend in? Because the kingdom doesn't ride the fence, it calls you to step out, to be different, to love deeper, forgive quicker, give more, hide less. It's not about being radical, it's about being real. And the real ones, they'll always look a little strange to the world because they've chosen a path most reject. And finally, the last parable we'll explore. Once again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was let down into the lake and caught all kinds of fish. Then the fishermen collected the good fish in baskets, but threw the bad away. Matthew 13:47-48. This one's heavy. It's about discernment. Jesus is saying many will be caught in the net of faith. They'll swim in the same waters. They'll hear the same sermons. But not all are the same. Some are just there for the moment, for the crowd, for the comfort. But others, they're surrendered. They're transformed. They're real. And at the end, only the real remains. This isn't fear-mongering. This is Jesus being honest. Because the kingdom is about authenticity. You can fake it before men, but not before God. He sees the heart and the net. It catches everyone, but the sorting that's coming. So what does this mean for you? It means stop asking, am I in the net? And start asking, am I truly His? Am I rooted? Am I surrendered? Am I living in the light, or just near it? Because the parables aren't for curiosity, they're for conversion. And not just of belief, but of being. They pull back the curtain, they reveal what's real. So here's the final code. The kingdom is not about adding something to your life. It's about replacing everything. It's not a supplement, it's a surrender. Jesus didn't teach in riddles to confuse you. He spoke in mystery to call you higher, to invite you deeper, to awaken you from religion into revelation. So I'll ask you one last time, are you content with surface faith, or are you ready to decode the kingdom? Because the truth is Jesus hid His deepest truths, not from the world, but for the ones willing to search. And if you're here still watching, still listening, it means something. In you knows. There's more. There's depth. There's a calling you can't shake. So don't stop now. Comment below. I'm ready to decode the kingdom. Let me know which parable shook you most. Let me know if you want a part 2, because there are more mysteries to uncover. And if this video brought you clarity, if it stirred your spirit, share it. Like it. Subscribe, because we're not just building content. We're building a movement of listeners, of seekers, of sons and daughters who won't settle for shallow. Because Jesus didn't die for religion. He died for reunion with you. So seek, decode, shine, and may your lamp never go out.